In these videos, we're going to take a look at propaganda and persuasion, and all of this comes from a book of the same title by Jowl and O'Donnell. And in these videos, we're going to take a look at what propaganda is, different forms of propaganda, take a look at disinformation and propaganda, and understand propaganda through a communication studies lens. So first and foremost, what is propaganda and how does it differ from persuasion? Propaganda is a form of communication that attempts to achieve a response that furthers the desired intent of the propagandist, whereas persuasion is more interactive and attempts to satisfy the needs of both the persuader and the persuadee. So as you can see, persuasion benefits more than just the speaker, whereas propaganda really only benefits the individual or institution who is putting that message out into the world. And propaganda employs a lot of persuasive strategies, but it really differs in purpose. So let's take a look at what propaganda is. Propaganda, in its most neutral sense, means to disseminate or promote particular ideas. Now, that's a really neutral definition, but the word has really lost all sense of neutrality and is more often used these days to identify a message as being negative or dishonest or lies, distortion, deceit, manipulation, mind control. All of these are seen as synonyms for propaganda. But there are many different definitions of the word propaganda. It's also commonly referred to as organized persuasion. So in other words, persuasion that is put together by larger institutions. Propaganda has also been seen as the abuse of persuasion. More than just clever deception, it uses persuasion tactics to achieve more nefarious ends. The authors of this chapter define propaganda as follows. Propaganda is the deliberate, systematic attempt to shape perceptions, manipulate cognitions, and direct behavior to achieve a response that furthers the desired intent of the propagandist. Now, there's a lot going on in that definition. Let's start with the word deliberate. Deliberate is a strong word, meaning willful, intentional, or premeditated. And this implies that the propagandist has carefully considered all of the different possibilities of their message. So propaganda is really carefully thought out ahead of time to select what the most effective strategy will be to promote a particular ideology and maintain an advantageous position in society. Systematic means that it is precise and methodical, and it's carried out with organized regularity, going back to the idea of organized persuasion earlier. So advertising campaigns, for example, can be seen as forms of systematic propaganda. If it's an attempt, that means that the propagandist is simply trying to create a certain state within the audience. And this state can be perceptual, it can be cognitive, and it can be behavioral, or all three. So we can shape perceptions through language and images like slogans, posters, symbols, all those sorts of things. We can try to manipulate cognitions by changing the way that somebody thinks about something, changing their attitude towards something. And oftentimes propaganda is directed at a specific behavior that the propagandist either wants to have happen or to stop. So these beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors are the desirable end states for propagandistic purposes. Now, ultimately, the goal of the propaganda is to achieve some kind of response. And oftentimes, the one who benefits from the audience's response is the propagandist, not necessarily the members of the audience. So as you can see, propaganda is a lot more complex than just persuasion. It's sort of a subset of persuasion, but it's purposeful, it's systematic, and it changes our perceptions, the way that we think, and the way that we behave in order to benefit the person or institution that is sending the message.